How you doing? I'm Brian Orlando with my friend Ron Goldstein Political Pundit. Ron, I've been reading your blogs for quite a bit of time now. A couple of months ago, you wrote a blog on Ed Snowden. At the time of this, on Ron Goldstein Political Pundit.wordpress.com, a lot of people were using words like traitor to describe him. Now he's hailed more of as a hero. At the time, it was a little different.
I think it's pretty split. I mean, but he's gained. Yes, he has gained. He was universally reviled when it first came out, and now there are certain forward-thinking people who I think are taking a second look at him, thinking, the hero may not be far from.
They asked President Barack Obama, "Is Ed Snowden a hero?" And he said flat out, "No, he's not a hero.
Right.
He breached security and he put a lot of people's lives at risk."
Right.
Now, there's a debate about that as well, but when you first wrote your article, things were a lot different. What happened between initially when the story broke and now that changed so many people's minds?
Well, the scope of it's huge now. I mean, at the time, I think that when it first broke, it said that they may have been monitoring phone calls only between foreign people that may have had ties with terrorists and people living in the United States. That's how it started. And then just layer by layer, it just kept coming out that it's all of our phone calls, it's all of our emails, it's all of our texts, it's in the computer. It's like they're it's more Big Brother than Big Brother was.
Right.
I mean, Big Brother in 1984 was not this comprehensive in its surveillance, and it's really, really scary. And I understand that Barack Obama has to side against Snowden because Snowden violated the company,
right?
And he's the head of the company, so he can't be anything but against Ed Snowden.
Do you think the American people were able to rile behind Ed Snowden because they're embarrassed?
Well, I don't know if getting behind Ed Snowden like he's going to be some iconic figure, but I'd like to think that what he set out to do, which is to show the American people how much their lives are being exposed to their government, I'd like to think that they know that and they judge it accordingly. I know a lot of people who think it's a good thing. They think as long, there's been no terrorist attacks and it's a small price to pay and I don't have anything to hide. And then there are other people who just feel so violated. And what's interesting there is it's not Democrat-Republican, and it's not right or left. It is to some point, to some extent, but not totally. There's a lot of people who, on the left and the right who feel violated.
I believe the majority of the American public are against it. However, in 2001, when we first heard about the Patriot Act, we heard that this was being set in place to keep us safe.
Right.
And we were basically told, don't worry, we're only going to monitor terrorists. That was the promise.
Right.
It turned out that wasn't true, and in reality, the American people were duped.
Right. Even people who were dissenting on policies that had nothing to do with 9/11 were being spied on. The worst part of all is when you ask these people point blank questions about the program, and they denied it, and they said no, and it's bald-faced lies. And it's not my opinion. They then, after they're caught with lying, it's saying, okay, well, I didn't mean it like that, or I had to do it they admit that they were lying. So it's not something me or anybody else is making up. They lied about the program. And that's the worst part, is lying about the program.
But why should we have believed them in the first place? This whole idea of splitting apart your right to search and seizure, why should we have believed them in the first place? All we heard was, don't worry, we won't spy on you.
Well, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Because we want to believe in our government.
Sure we do.
We want to believe our government's not going to do this. First of all, we probably can't even believe it was physically possible to do. But it apparently is. And but yes, we want to believe in our government. We want to believe that we are a country of Abraham Lincoln and George Washington and founding fathers and good people, and that the bad people are Iraq or Libya or something like that. But I don't know. The weirdest part of this whole thing is that a key figure in the NSA was asked point blank, why do you do this? Why so comprehensive when some of it obviously has nothing to do with 9/11 or terrorists? And the answer coming back is because we can.
And that's scary enough.
Chilling.
But again, this is exactly why I believe Ed Snowden is now a hero. Simply because the American people got suckered, they're ashamed of that, and now they need something to grab onto, to hold onto.
Yeah.
Oh, Ed Snowden was a hero. Wait a minute. They told us everything was going to be okay. We got screwed. Ed Snowden's a hero.
Well, you can go back. I watched this Frontline the other day about the NSA and Bush and Snowden and Obama. Bush was asked point blank if any of these activities of the surveillance program was on Americans, and he looked right in the camera and said absolutely not. And behind the scenes, the very day, he wanted to go after people who were leaking that it was, because he knew that they were, but our own president lied to the camera. Now, all presidents lie, but there are certain degrees of lying, and when you lie about something like that, it's unfortunate.
But this is a can of worms that the American people should be opening layer by layer, and they're not. If Bush looked us in the camera, if Bush looked us in the face and lied about that, well, then all those questions about 9/11 that still seem to be a bone of contention with a lot of people should be re-asked. People should go back and ask again, look, we have you lying about this. Now what do you have to say about this? Right now, there's a 9/11 museum that's opening. There's a lot of controversy around it because of things like a gift shop, which is tasteless. And there is more controversy surrounding the towers collapsing themselves. The 9/11 Truth Commission will be there protesting. I don't believe they should be there either, but there are questions that need to be answered, and no one seems to be doing that.
Right. Well, there is there's an organized crime mentality among the government. They're bullies, and they all believe that whatever is their way, no matter how they get it done. And it's unfortunate that this is America of today. When I worked on presidential events, I worked with Secret Service, and we were in a foreign country, a Middle Eastern country, and working in the presidential palace. And I had found a back way to get to the event, and thought that I was in confidence with my Secret Service agent because I didn't want to alarm a bunch of people that I had discovered this.
Right.
So I went to him and I said, "Can you, this is going to benefit you and me, but I found a way to get to the event. If I tell you, you won't tell anybody." And he said, "Absolutely not." So I showed him this back way to the event, where the president was going to speak, and as soon as he did that, he just turned around and got on his radio and just called everybody and said there's another way. And then all of a sudden, there were 8 agents running over and going through this. He just completely screwed me. I'd like to use another word, but screw is the same. And it's like, wow, I'll never trust him again. And it's because that's the mentality, is that, whatever's good, I'm just going to do it. And
well, they're going to use whoever they want to use, whoever they can use to get their way.
Right.
And they'll tell you anything.
Right.
Which is why I don't know why anybody even bothered to ask Bush if they were spying on American people, because the answer should have been yes, regardless. Right. Regardless of what he was saying, the fact of the matter is the Patriot Act raped the Fourth Amendment, and we Americans allowed it to happen.
Right.
Because we were told,
right,
don't worry, they won't spy on you. Right. We knew damn well we should have known they were lying.
Right. It's almost like we have a comic book or first or second grade book mentality on our country. We're right, they're wrong. We're Superman.
Right.
And it's the American way, all that stuff. And it's a democracy, folks, and we should never stop. I've been involved, as Brian said, in all facets of the government. You should never stop questioning, because you do hold the reins. I know you've heard it before, but it's the absolute truth. You hold the reins. Never stop questioning.
We stopped holding the reins 30, 40 years ago. On my way home the other day, I was listening to a public radio station, and there was an audio documentary about Reagan. Now, a lot of people will argue that Reagan was the turning point of this country, because basically when he was in office, most of the New Deal was destroyed. He went after the air traffic controllers, and that seemed to be the turning point. You, as somebody who worked with Ted Kennedy, and then in the post-Reagan years with Clinton and Obama, How do you view Reagan as a president and the trickle-down economics that I believe it was the starting point of this country going downhill?
Well, trickle-down economics, or voodoo economics as we've called it, it never works. They tried it in the 20s. They tried it in the 80s. It drove up deficits. The deficits came from the Reagan administration. I don't know how that became a Democratic thing, but and it doesn't work. The only way it works is the way it worked starting in the 40s, is with the middle class thriving. Obama says from the middle out, and he's absolutely correct. If you're a multi-billionaire out there listening, you're going to do so much better if you allow the middle class to consume. That's the only way you get more money than what you've already have.
Well,
Otherwise, the economy the country is always going to just lumber along at best.
Well, I mean, it's a simple concept. The majority of the population are middle class. If they're doing well, that's more people spending money in the economy.
Right. And that's where a lot of our policies come from. But, the other side, they just think, freeze it the way it is. The rich people stay rich, the poor people stay poor, and they're looking out for their interests. And, I believe in checks and balances, but I want to go back to that Frontline TV show for a second. There were people who were aghast at what was happening. There were people in the FBI, there were people in the Justice Department, there were people in the NSA, and they saw what was happening, and they all felt, as Americans, like you and I, that they had to tell someone. And they protested. It was the same formula. They protested, their supervisors went nowhere. They went over their heads. It was even worse. And they gave every opportunity for someone to listen to them, and they were told to shut up and sit down. So each one of these guys, and you've seen this, each one of these guys looked in the camera and they said, look, the thing that I faced the most was I was afraid of indictments and going to jail. And then they look in the camera and they go, or worse. And these are FBI agents themselves,
Right.
NSA agents, Department of Justice people, and they all said, or else. I mean, what the hell country are we living in now where even those people are afraid of, Kim Jong-un is not running this country.
They've been writing about these things. They've been making movies about these things. They were called conspiracy pieces for years. There's a reason why we were able to see movies about this stuff. Somebody had the idea. They got it from somewhere. Somebody leaked this stuff to somebody throughout the years. And yes, I always believed it was possible. To me, the moral of the story is simple. If they're raping your amendments, do something then. If they're turning around and telling you, look, we're going to take away some of your constitutional rights, but don't worry.
Right.
We're not going to take away yours, just these people's.
Right.